Dr. Kerrigan was the first female tenured professor and chair of a department at the University of Virginia School of Medicine, chairing the Department of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation there until she made the leap to enter the field of manufacturing. While at Harvard, where she received her MD, Dr. Kerrigan discovered that high-heeled shoes increase joint torque that are associated with the development and progression of knee osteoarthritis, a debilitating medical condition that's twice as common in women as men and is the leading cause of physical disabilities in the elder. She blends advanced manufacturing techniques, lessons from physics, medicine, and wellness to make a unique and healthy difference. So we welcome Dr. Kerrigan, and I hope you have a good session.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so I'll run through all these slides, but I also want to be interactive too. So if anybody has any questions along the way and want me to go off on a tangent, I'm happy to do so. Yeah, my background. I like to just introduce myself as a cobbler now, because that's really what I am. But it's a long story. And started off as a physician and then a researcher. I was fascinated with gait, the study of walking and running, and then that led me to looking at footwear, almost as like a lark. Like what would be the effect of high heel shoes? It was our first footwear study on gait. I knew there would be like a lot of problems, but I had no idea what I was going to find was going to make such a big difference clinically. And then that led me to I can't publish anymore. I can't publish one more paper. I was already at the top of the heap in academic medicine. I was full tenured professor chair. I had over 100 publications. And I just couldn't publish anymore. So I got to go make shoes. So for the last 9 years, I've been in a factory cobbling and making shoes. So why O shoes? So all this research basically told me one thing. That shoes have been designed wrong. It's not just high heel shoes. It's every single shoe, every single pair of shoes that you guys are wearing. If they're not OSH shoes, they have a problem with it. There's a problem that is increasing the loads on your joints. What I care about, and I tell people, my specialty is physical medicine and rehabilitation. So the medical degree, and then I study the musculoskeletal system. It's the whole body. The feet are just one small part of it. So that research, my findings, shaped the direction of my thinking, and then that's how O shoes came to be. They're really different. They're different in just sort of the basic design, the shape. Everything about them is different, that I really had to build my own factory to develop them. One of the big three shoe manufacturers actually was working with me right around the time I was leaving academics, and they were really thrilled about just sort of taking some of this technology that I have patented and then developing footwear, but they did not want to do it to the extent that I wanted to, which was change the entire shape of the sole, the shoe, and introduce entirely new materials. They weren't patient enough for that, so that's when I left and traded in my $1 million laboratory for his $1 million factory. And so instead of doing research, I'm happy making shoes and seeing what the effect is on people. So I can show that the shoes reduce the loads on the joints, but it's not until somebody is actually wearing them do I know they're making a difference. And I'll talk about who our customers are. So what's wrong with other shoe designs? All of them increase, and that's from dress shoes to clogs to running shoes, abnormally increase the impact on your joints. Okay, so from the knees, the hips, the ankles, they all do. And I have just a bunch of articles. Women's shoes do it. I started off just looking at high heel shoes and then panicked, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what the effect of other shoes. I found out it's just a bunch of different factors in shoes, and it's women's shoes, it's men's shoes, it's running shoes that all increase the impact on the joints. And in the knee in particular, that was sort of, it's a knee, but it's really everything. If you've probably heard of my research through the press, it's become common knowledge. It's a Jeopardy question even. It's that shoes, high heel shoes, increase the loads on the knee and may be associated with knee osteoarthritis. I believe women have twice as much knee arthritis because of our footwear. I have studies where men and women barefoot have the same loads on their joints. But then I put on a typical woman's shoe and then a men's shoe, and then I can see that the loads are at least twice as much in just a woman's shoe. And it's not just the high heel shoe. It's the Dansko. It's all these things that are built into women's shoes as if to help women that because we're somehow flawed, and we're not. But because we've got this Q angle, there's things that go into footwear to try to reduce those loads, and in fact, they increase those loads. So yeah, you've probably heard of my research. This was a younger me after our first paper on high heel shoes, and it was the subject of whole 2020, so this is how old that is, with Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs. And actually, Hugh Downs was awesome. He said, I don't know why women would wear high heel shoes. And Barbara Walters was, well, I think that a woman looks beautiful. Like, oh my gosh, I was. And then, if anybody, Ellen Goodman was a columnist, a syndicated columnist for the Boston Globe, and she wrote what I thought was like the awesome article. She said, well, what do you think is attractive? So I said, I don't care. It's not high heel shoes. It's not flat. And this was the time Mia Hamm was, popular. I said, if it's a soccer shoe, that's beautiful. Why can't we all think that soccer shoes are attractive? Mia Hamm is attractive. I think the soccer shoe is just fine. So, and it's not again, it's not just high heel shoes. I showed running shoes. You remember the barefoot running movement, Christopher McDougall, 2009, 2010. Well, I was the person you've probably seen it sort of like third hand. Oh, research confirms that barefoot is better. It actually comes from a study I did that showed that the typical running shoe increases the loads on all the joints, not just the knee, the hip, the ankle, by 33 to 50%. Which is even more than what we had shown with a high heel shoe in walking, high heel shoe compared to barefoot walking. We were showing in running these increases. Of course, this is running. I'm not saying that high heel shoes are better to run in than a running shoe. I'm just high heel shoes and walking, and running shoes and running. But this became sort of oh my gosh, the shoes are designed all wrong. Well, I didn't get into the whole barefoot debate. I tried to extricate myself from all of the press here. That was in 2010, and it was about then that I said, I'm going to go build a factory. I'm leaving academics, and I'm going to go make a better shoe. So the race to build a better shoe, I published, this was in the IEEE, so it wasn't an original article. It kind of summed up all my articles and said, okay, this is now how you have to build a better shoe. You can see why I'm not supposed to say what the name of that shoe company is, but one of the big three. This is why they didn't want to do it, because it really was going back to ground zero. And it's basically designing against a whole different principle. OSH is uniquely designed to protect at true peak joint impact. So when the impact is on the joints are at the highest, which I showed occurs well after the foot first hits the ground. So all other shoes have been attempting to cushion impact right when the foot hits the ground. This is the so-called heel strike transient or initial contact. But when you try to cushion that, what happens is you end up increasing the loads when it actually counts in mid-stance. So what we try to do is we protect when it actually counts, when the foot is fully planted. And this is the moment in the gait cycle when we are at risk for all of really everything, every overuse injury, but most importantly, as we age, the increased loads on the joints, on where we get arthritis in all those areas. And so this is when we have to protect. You can just see from the picture, it's so obvious. I have all these graphs, but honestly, we need to have a spring right there at that moment in the gait cycle. Have a spring that compresses and releases, and shoes aren't designed that way. It's all about trying to cushion out impact. So these are graphs. There's a torque is just the force applied about a joint. So, and this is what we measure. We measure in torques. We can apply from this what impact is on the joints. So those arrows point to where initial impact occurs. So when your foot first hits the ground, you can see that the loads on the joints at the knee are actually really small. Like, who cares? Why is there all this cushioning for that little arrow? Yet that's what other shoes do, or trying to act. What OSHA is designed to protect at true peak joint impact, and that's at the top of the mountains. Duh. So, like, you'd think, why isn't this? Why was this never, developed in shoes? Everyone's been so looking at this impact, and impact is not when it counts. So with spring, so we need a spring in the shoes, and really there really hasn't been soles that has a true spring in it. But there actually has been a spring in a track. Probably the best evidence we have that a spring can reduce injuries and reduce those impacts is the Harvard indoor track, built way back in the 70s. And it's really just on a plywood track, so it was a spring. So you landed, and it provided the spring. And it was effective in reducing injuries by 50% in the runners. So it was significant. And also improving performance, because it kind of goes hand in hand. If you're providing the spring in mid stance, you're going to give more. You're going to improve efficiency too. So I had to develop this spring-like sole. So it's different material. The typical shoe sole has a material. It's called ethylene vinyl acetate, which is tremendous at cushioning, but it does nothing in terms of spring. So I had to develop something as this elastomer spring material, which is different than this typical foam cushioning. So what's wrong with all this cushioning? I've gone through it. It increases joint torque. It also then compresses down quickly. So, if you ever, when you have a new pair of running shoes and they feel good, for like the first few days, but after not very many miles, all of a sudden it compresses. That compressing down causes these unwanted contours. Okay, and I'll get to that in a second, which then only further increase joint torque and impact. So these are these contours that you wouldn't know exist until you have a water jet saw like we have in the factory. We cut open all these shoes, and until you actually dissect your shoes, you can't see what's inside. But the typical shoe has contours, not just in the heel-toe direction. So it's not just an elevated heel compared to the toe, but it's from the heel to the toe, and then this curve back up. And then the side to side, there is this contour that's exaggerated in women's shoes that has this, it's basically a boat, this cradle. That increases the loads, and that cradle is amplified in women's shoes. Sometimes it's promoted as helping control the foot, and cradle, as if that was a good thing. Talking to old-time real shoe cobblers, they said that the reason they have this, why this was, and it's in every shoe design. I had to take what's called a last, the form of the shoe, and the typical last form for all the shoe companies have this curve going side to side. So I had to take this shoe and develop my own last that is flat in all directions. But anyway, so one of these old-time cobbler said the reason for this is to basically just shove as much of the foot in to make your foot look narrow. So it's an aesthetic thing. And you can think about it, so I did all this stuff and showing the joints, but then you just look at that and you say, my gosh, wouldn't that cause forefoot problems? Metatarsalgia, Morton's normal, which I didn't know too much about until we started making shoes. there's so many women who have metatarsalgia and Morton's neuroma. I mean, it's incredible, and it's just because of the footwear that sort of the typical women's footwear has this contour. So you take them out of it, and all of a sudden, the Morton's neuroma and metatarsalgia go away, or hopefully would never, arise in the first place if you weren't wearing shoes with that kind of contour. So basically, not having all those contours, and then the last contour is arch support, which has always been, like, you got to have arch support. You got to have arch support. We showed that arch supports increase those loads. So I put something up under the arch. I'm taking away the sort of natural spring. The arch moves so much when you land, and then in mid-stance, it compresses and releases. It's a true spring. And if I put an arch under that, I've eliminated that spring, and we increase those loads on your joints. So we published this, so we don't have an arch in our shoes, which is very different than think about most shoe companies. They promote arch support. Well, we have something else. We support it dynamically because we're giving this sort of elastomer spring underneath the whole shoe. It compresses and releases in tune with when your arch is acting, so it kind of helps your arch sort of independently of your arch. So developing that spring sole required I had to build a factory. I had to, like an R&D, develop this material, and I played around with tons of material. I didn't know what to do with all my research publications, so that's the first thing you see when you walk in the factory, are all my research publications. But I had to play with these materials. I had an injection molding machine, a milling machine, making molds, and experimenting with all these different materials to find the right flubber material. And then that kind of led to, I was looking at all this elastomer material, and then at the same time, 3D printing was coming on, and I said, oh my gosh, we could probably 3D print this stuff. So we started 3D printing it with from the base material, which is just pellets, and so we can create this really unique architecture. And then support. So I've always been supported by the National Institute of Health in my studies, and then since OSH, have been supported by the National Science Foundation. So more on the development of the manufacturing and all that. So we replaced that cheap foam cushion with a true elastomer spring sole, and then everything is flat. So that's, it's flat in the heel-to-toe direction. It's flat in the side-to-side direction. No unnecessary contours. And then the 3D printing, like I said, it allows us to actually make something that you can't make with any other process. So it'd be impossible to mold these like little intricate springs. It just would be impossible. So we can create something that's truly unique and spring-like nothing else. And then we do also mold shoes based on all of this stuff and creating this elastomer material. Then I said, okay, we can also mass produce these. These are molded soles. Those are some of our sneakers. There's some more sneakers. There's another style. Oh, I did mention, Dansko, our clogs, increase the loads really to the same extent as a 2-inch stiletto heel. And so I believe that's even worse because you have, and think about it, Dansko, it's not allowing that arch to move. It's not allowing your whole foot to move. It's reducing circulation, it's doing all sorts of stuff. But the big thing, it's increasing those loads to the same extent as a high heel shoe. The good thing about a high heel shoe is it feels so uncomfortable you won't wear it much of the day. But a Dansko, a lot of women think, oh my gosh, they're supposed to be healthy, so they wear them all day long. So we have a sort of something that looks a little bit like a Dansko, but isn't. Has our sole. And I'm just going to show you a lot of pretty pictures of shoes. And then our sandals. This is what's great. So our sandals, we I'm especially excited about our sandals. This is our third season into it, and now just our sandal season is just beginning. For the year. These are 3D printed, and we're actually we have enough 3D printers that we're using the printers for production, manufacturing. And they are really amazing. So the sole, and I have a pair. I didn't bring any but the ones I'm wearing, but I swear they're pretty clean because somebody just gave me some antibacterial spray, and you have to feel them. It's the spring-like material, and even stand on them. Waterproof, all that. So what's really neat about 3D printing, besides being able to create this incredible material that I couldn't create any other way, is it allows us to make them on demand. So we can have like any color straps in the world. So we can make them custom. We can actually custom them for unusual size feet. If you look, that's two shoes next to each other. You can see the lines of the 3D printing. Well, and one of them is thicker than the other. So this is somebody who had a leg length discrepancy. So we could just make them a pair that accommodated that without having to do any extra lift or anything like that, which is really neat. So our ability to provide custom shoes is neat. But in fact, and also for men too, we've been focused on women. Again, just because of my research said, we're women, we need this the most. And so we're going to make shoes for women. And I always thought, okay, because guys always ask, when are you going to make shoes for men? When are you going to make shoes for men? But it's funny how we started off. We started making shoes for the hardest population. This is for women that are in their 50s and 60s and already have a problem, and they're desperate. They want our shoes. They have knee pain. They have metatarsalogia, Morton syndrome, or hip problems. And so they're so desperate, they want our shoes, and they don't care what they look like. And but this is what's happened is that our customers are now calling the shots on what's our next new style, and they keep wanting all these different colors and new styles. So we haven't gotten to the men. It's because we're listening to our customers. But we did sneak in the men's shoes for sandals, and in fact, actually, a lot of men buy our shoes because they really are unisex, a lot of them, and so men buy them. But so we can make the customization, we can make men's shoes, but most people and most women don't need a customized shoes. The straps are adjustable. It's a very easy fit. So we kind of always design something that will work for many different sizes. We can make, like for example, we can make a wide width or a narrow very easily, and we could, but we never do because our design kind of works for everybody. So one of the things women, and I guess one of those things is like I'm one of the few women shoe designers. You think most shoe designers making women's shoes are men, and so it's kind of this idea of what is attractive. I don't know, it's like as a men, but like a woman's foot, we have a very wide forefoot, and also more probably wider toes, and then we have a very narrow heel. And so our shoes, the shape of our form, has a very wide forefoot and a very narrow heel. So it turns out, so many women have come and said, but I've got wide feet. And then you look at them and go, nope, they're normal. You think you have wide feet because you have a wide forefoot, but that's normal. Or some people say, well, I have a very narrow foot. No, you have a narrow heel because you're a woman. You have a very narrow heel. So our shoe design, which is sort of basic around a woman's foot, like that need for wide versus narrow doesn't exist so much. So it's interesting. So as our sandals, I going to say? So yeah, in the way that they're constructed with these straps, we can also make shoes, like closed-toed shoes. We just haven't yet. We're kind of weighing in all the different possibilities. I should say we've gotten a lot of great press from all our shoes, our sandals. We had one of our interns walk the Appalachian Trail 4,000 miles in one pair. And so I just, I just sort of sum up. We've been selling shoes mostly to women, and this has been since 2011. So I left my academic position. I shouldn't say I left. I was practicing physical medicine and rehab, but I was also an engineer. I was in the mechanical and aerospace engineering at UVA. But I left to build Osh. It took me a couple years to figure out what I was doing, and then we started selling shoes in 2011. And I actually still teach. Interestingly, I teach in the engineering school, but I teach. I have an academic appointment in the School of Architecture now, and teach courses on 3D printing and design. So designing cool shoes, and like I said, we kind of been listening to our customers. We don't advertise. It's just really word of mouth. We have a website. We open the factory from 12 to 3 p.m. on Saturdays. That's it. That's our store, and have built up this sort of these very loyal customers who, sometimes when we say, okay, what do you guys think? We should make shoes for men, and they'll no, but seriously, we will make shoes for men. And like I said, a lot of men already wear our shoes. And we've introduced a new style, just about at least one new style every year. And this year, for the first time, we're going to introduce a new style with actually it's a crowdfunding. So it's Indiegogo. We're going to do a campaign with Indiegogo probably in the next couple months for a whole new shoe design. And that'll be our first time. Up until this time, it's just like we'll have a new style, and we'll put it on our website or send email to our database, and then that's it. And so that's kind of the story of Osh. It's a lot. There's like research, there's engineering, there's manufacturing, but sort of the bottom line, driving it all is it goes back to sort of the original research finding is like there's got to be better shoes, and it's not going to be the soccer cleats, but something that is more attractive, and and I like to think that our fashion, I could have sold out so many times to not just a big athletic shoe company, but oh my gosh, so many people said, well, if you could make a high heel shoe that had this little technology, or you endorsed it, no way. I really believe that and that the idea of what's fashionable, that form and function is going to dictate what is beautiful. And we're showing that, come on, how many women, you'd wear this, right? This is attractive. You can wear that with your dress. You can wear it to a wedding, because we now have them in white. And we're just going to keep going with that and make sure that we're always in the sort of the same direction. And we, meanwhile, keep growing, and that word of mouth kind of growth is awesome, and it's a lot of fun too. I have fun every day doing this. That's me in front of our injection molding machine, and I went to Harvard Medical School, and this month in the Harvard Medical School, magazine, I'm on the centerfold for the for Harvard Medical School, physician turned cobbler, and but yeah, I'm very proud of that injection molding machine, which is kind of the how I learned how to machine and make these molds. And I tried to say, those 3D printers, we actually make them. So we didn't just invent them, but we make them. And so we can have like banks of 3D printers, and I think that's that's the future, is 3D printing, because it makes most sense for footwear. Because to make like like an injection molded thing, it doesn't make sense. Because why would you, when you can injection mold millions of them? But for shoes is a difficult thing. Like, I don't know how, like we have maybe 8-10 different styles, but then all the different colors. So sizes, colors. You think about the inventory that you have to keep, and then if you wanted to do different widths, that's even more. But when you do 3D printing, it's not just being able to do them custom, but you can do it on demand. So we don't have inventory. We just have bags of pellets, and which are recyclable too. So we can take this, put it in a grinder, and put this back into our printer. So it's completely recyclable and use recycled material on demand. So anyway, so that's really cool, developing that. And with the National Science Foundation support, we're now looking at beyond just our factory of having 3D printers, but lots of different places, and even parts of the world. Like a 3D printer doesn't have to run on AC power. It can run with a solar panel. So think about somebody being able to make a shoe, make the sole, and then have little holes all the way around, and being able to stitch in any upper, and knit or crochet by hand an upper, or any kind of material, leather, anything, and you've got a pair of shoes. So it's basically decentralizing the manufacturing. For most shoes are made in China, 99%. So to be able to make a sole and then make whatever upper style you'd like. What woman here wouldn't like to design your very own upper and crochet and embellish it? I don't know. So that's where we are right now, and sort of the exciting part of it's very non-traditional in the 3D printing, and it's again, it goes with our design, being able to the shoe is flat. So that works, because we have to print on a flat plate. I think that's it. Questions?
On your website, it says when you go to order the shoes, it asks for if you have a coupon number. So where do you generate coupons for this?
Shoot, I'll have to ask my husband. But all I'm going to ask him, I'll call him right after this and and I'll get that number for you. Yeah.
So you said you started out originally for women who are older and already have some of these problems. So as you know, I'm a runner. And so if I were to order a pair of running shoes, do I need to retrain my body, if you will? Is it one of those things where, because I know when the
minimal,
you had to really retrain yourself in terms of running. Is it the same case or can I just put them on and put out 10K?
Really, yeah, it's not like that. Yeah, there really is. I say there probably is some transitioning, but depends on the person. Okay, so because we're giving you a spring that you never had in your life before, it's going to make things easier. So it's going to be awesome. So for most things like knee pain, anything, your joints, you're like instantly going to feel it. There's no break-in period. Right away, those torques are going to reduce. But you know, your foot's probably weak. You probably have a tight heel cord, Achilles.
Yep,
And it's-
definitely.
yeah, because of just the traditional shoes you've
Yeah.
been wearing, and maybe with a little bit of high heels or wearing dance goes where it's short. So that has to stretch a little bit, but it doesn't take that much time because we are giving you something. So some people have absolutely zero transitioning, but some people need a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And second question, do you ship to Canada?
Yes, we do. We ship
Awesome.
all over the world. Actually, I think, that slide that I showed with the map, we have pins in pretty much, well, every continent, and yeah. Yeah.
So she's gonna get you an hour. Oh, sorry. Okay.
I have a very, very tiny foot. I'm a small 5. I have a super hard time finding shoes. I saw on your website that you start at 6.5.
Yeah, we do, but we could make you sandals if you wrote us a little note.
I don't wear sandals.
No.
I have skinny legs, and I don't.
But we will.
That's why I
I'm
have my boots
sorry.
on.
I'm sorry. So yeah, that's the problem with our molded shoes. So like a lot of our shoes they are molded, and so yeah, we have to kind of bite the bullet and then buy massive amounts.
Got it.
So that's why we only go 6.5. But the sandals, and that's why 3D printing is so awesome, because we can make you any size. And later this year, we will have shoes. I promise.
So you
that
will.
will
So
be
you
3D
don't.
printed, closed-toed shoe.
You
that
don't
you'll-
custom make smaller for the.
Yeah. So,
Unless are the sandals. The sandals, yes.
Yeah, but we will. So,
Okay, got it. I'll
yeah.
keep checking.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I have a different question about performance. I would suspect if you're putting a spring under there, are you getting a better return efficiency? And I'm surprised like the high-end runner people are not all over this kind of thing.
Yeah, so, but we haven't really market. Runners are such a pain in the butt. Don't we? So we just don't. I mean, I am a runner, but it's like to go after that whole running market. Oh my gosh. So we don't. A lot of runners do wear them, but we don't.
Do you have any data or any even anecdotal information about whether people
Just
feel like they're
anecdotal. Yeah.
faster or,
Yeah, I'll tell you I'm faster in them. Yeah, and a lot of people will. It goes hand. Yeah, because it's true. You've got a little spring in it. So it's a little bit easier. Yeah.
All right. So I had the same question regarding size 5, but I actually had also a different question for you. So in all of your research, it seems like there are so many podiatrists out there and so many different orthotics and insoles and such. And, I know I've had some and they seem to introduce additional contours. So do you feel like those actually create more joint stress or counterbalance it? And, why did you go with flat design?
Right, because the flat, I'm interested in the joints, and so I just go with the research. If I put this orthotic, this contour in there, I will increase those loads. But that's not to say that orthotics are bad. People for a particular foot issue, something structural in the, a specially designed orthotic is useful. But just to generally say, an orthotic with arch support is good. It's not. It increases the loads. But you can see why I get into a lot of trouble. I am not a podiatrist. I'm a physical medicine and rehab doc, but this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, orthotics. And then shoes, sort of the traditional shoe design. Everybody's always been thinking that arch support, a shoe isn't good unless it has arch support, and I'm saying the opposite.
So since you are a disruptor to this industry, I mean, we're talking billions of dollars of these shoe companies, the orthotics, all of that. So right now, you're sort of a little voice in a big world. As you get bigger, do you anticipate any pushback, any lawsuits, any, throwing you under the bus because you might be too much of a disruptor for their money?
It's already happened. I've already been thrown under the bus. So it's not, there's nowhere to go but up. And really, but that's what's so great about having these loyal Oshers. Like once you have a pair of Osh and you sort of become a disciple, is that it? and that's and that's what's great. So I think it'll be from the people, the actual consumer, the person who's wearing them, and it's not the industry. They can talk all they want, but it's when the consumer who doesn't have any knee pain anymore, their metatarsalgia, Morton's neuroma goes away. So now we're at the point, it's a really neat kind of point we're at where, like to say, especially with these sandals, like we have, like a lot of young women think they're really attractive. So, and the people who are been wearing them are telling their daughters. So it's really just recently, and I'd say the last year, where our age, which has been 50s to 60s, has now dropped. So I think, yeah, it's just gonna, because it's just consumer driven, and our consumer is generally very smart, and kind of is wise to the, to sort of that it needs to be flat, and they understand. So yeah, I just education but that's how we kind of overcome it. Yeah, we're the David in this for sure. So yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
How do your sandals compare to like Birkenstock, which I normally think of in this space of people actually liking?
Yeah, so kind of like Birkenstock, they have a lot of contour in it. One thing is good, they don't have an elevated heel, so that's good. But they still have this contour. But it's one of those, like, if you wear Birkenstocks all day, you might versus what it's hard because if people are wearing Birkenstocks, they don't have any point of reference to say, what's it like to wear these. When you're wearing just a spring, but you don't have something shoved up under your arch. What does that feel like? I can tell you in Oshers, we call them Oshers, will tell you after they've been wearing Osh for a few years, that they go put on a pair of Birkenstocks, they'll tell you all the problems with Birkenstocks. But you wouldn't know it, or people wouldn't know it until you actually have been wearing something flat. But yeah, so you put on a pair of Birkenstocks, a pair of Danskos, something that's all this contours. I mean, you feel this thing under your arch, and interestingly, you can feel your foot become numb. So it's even the circulation, because I was pushing right on the branch of the posterior tibial artery, but you don't know it because over time you're wearing this, you just always have that that compression on that artery. But now you don't, and now it's like all of a sudden then you feel it. So that's the compare. But you have to feel the shoe. I'm going to pass it around. I'll pass them both.
I
swear they aren't stinky.
I have a question. Can you make a platform shoe?
It's difficult because in the shoe, like what we have is pretty high. It's like 20 millimeters high. If it gets too high, what happens is to clear the foot, I have to then decrease the width going from the forefoot up to the toe. And by doing that, I'm actually increasing the load. So I can only go a certain amount to provide that a certain amount of curvature, or it'll be problematic. So. Yeah, you gotta feel the spring and step on it.
What's the price?
I think those are 120. They're 120. Is that right? So someone can look at the website, and I'll get the coupon. I'll get the coupon code. Yeah, so I'm gonna call my husband and get it and tell you. I also have a shoe, yeah, on my desk too, if you want to look at an actual closed-toed shoe, the sneaker. It's a little worn. And you can run in the sandals too. Yeah. You know, a friend of mine from college did advertising, so she came up with a name. It's the word shoe, upside down and inside out. So it's, yeah. The sandals? Yeah. Why couldn't you dance in them? Yeah. Yeah. I know the idea of like you got to have a running shoe and a this shoe and a that shoe and a this shoe and a that shoe. It is just because we can only make so many styles, but we have I mean, people do absolutely everything in our shoes, and then like to tell us what they just did in their shoes. So tennis and all sorts of crazy stuff. Yeah, so there's two different styles. There's like a with a toe and without a toe. Yeah, and there's a shoe. You familiar with that shoe, Chaco? Chaco? Yeah, yeah. So people that are similar in that sort of an adjustable strap, but instead of the strap going underneath the sole, it actually it goes into those edges, so it's all a lot more exposed. And yeah, unlike Chacos, which has a tremendous amount of contour. I don't know if it's similar to like the Birkenstock. So you put that on, you don't know any better. It's like all this contour, but except for I know a number of runners who tell me like you cannot run in a pair of Chacos because this thing is just stuff is pushing up on you. You can't possibly run in a pair of Chacos, and they're heavy. It's like half the weight of a pair of Chacos, but they're springy, so you can, and you don't have that pushing up into your shoe. And I think maybe that's why we've got the younger demographic. Because a lot of younger men and women like Chacos. They like the look of it, but they like these better. So yeah, I'll get that code for you. So if you want to track me down, I'll get that. I'll get my other shoe. Is there any other questions, you guys? Okay, good. Well, thank you.